Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other, and today's episode is Death Note Part 2, Episode 36, 1.28. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So the episode begins with the aftermath of Kiyomi's death in the last episode, where we see Light and company watching the news reports and blaming her death on a gasoline fire and car accident because she was seen to have been kidnapped and that her body was confirmed. This gives Light confidence because he believes that before she died, Mikami would have gotten in contact with her to confirm that their plan was a go. So he then, when Nier reaches out to confirm that they're still meeting on January 28th, hence the title of the episode, he agrees that that is still the date that they want to meet and it will still work for him. And they then arrive at the meeting place, and Light is full of confidence. Nier is prepared. The meeting starts slow. We start with Nier wearing an L mask and saying that he's going to wait at least half an hour, as his face is the only one that he can be sure nobody has seen. After half an hour, he takes the mask off. This is when Nier reveals that he knows about Mikami Terror and that he is going to be coming in order to kill them all. And indeed, the door that he indicates Mikami will come through, because it's the only way he can peek in to see who's in there, does slide open. Mikami then looks inside, starts writing all the names frantically, and Nier indicates that he has swapped out the page for that day, as Mikami's habits are one page every day, so he swapped out the page for the day of the meeting, so none of them are going to die. Light, however, thinks that he's thought ahead of Nier and knew that he was going to mess with the notebook, and so had Mikami make that copy. Earlier in part 2, he had Mikami make a copy that he was also writing in, and a fake, and so Light believes that only the fake has been messed with, the real one still intact, therefore he believes that everybody is still going to die, because Mikami should be writing in the real notebook, not the decoy one. And Mikami is then invited in, with the theory being whatever name he didn't write down will for sure be Kira, and he comes inside, and they start counting down the seconds before we get the cliffhanger, which is that we do not yet know whose plan worked. Well, if it wasn't a rewatch, we would not know whose plan worked, and that is where this episode leaves us. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we are going to now rank the episode, and as always, we will be ranking on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. And the mostly objective rank values that I felt applied to this episode are: first, we have our single arc supporting character development, which is that Mikami arrives, has been found out, and writes in a notebook, which may or may not be fake, and is definitely guilty because he did just sit there and write everybody's name down. So there's that for him. Second, because it involves multiple characters, I decided to put it under the world building category, but this of course is Nier and Light coming together to meet for their final showdown alongside all of their teams, so Kira with the task force and Nier with the SPK, and they're going back and forth, and then that brings us up to 5 points. However, I did feel that there was a negative in that this is purely set up for the finale. Literally nothing new happens in this episode other than them coming to meet, but most of the episode is just exposition of them explaining their plans, Nier to the task force and Kira inside of his own head to us, the audience. Either way, it's just setting up for the finale, and that is why it's -1 point, which then still leaves us with 4 points for this episode. And that brings our Part 2 rankings so far to in first selection, vigilance, justice, malice, father, transfer, 1.28, abduction, impatience, and then in 10th is scorn. Now my personal rankings, again, I said this, not a lot happened in this episode on the mostly objective ranking, and not a lot happened in the episode. We started with, oh, confirmation, everybody now knows that Kyomi's dead, whoop. I don't know why I whooped for that, but it happened, so we're leaving that in. Well, I don't edit these, so of course it's going to be in. What was I saying? Oh yeah, and then Nier confirms they're still meeting. We have them arriving at the meeting. We have them facing off. We have the plans explained. That's all that happened, so it wasn't very exciting, but it did build anticipation for the finale, as we now know that they've both anticipated each other's plans, and so now it's just to figure out which plan ended up succeeding, and we will get that in the next episode, so a bit of frustration at the cliffhanger, but also understandable to have the cliffhanger there. I thought the L mask was creepy, so that lost it points. There was another final dramatic writing montage, which is always great, except that it was Mikami doing the dramatic writing montage, and he kind of looked a little bit, well, I guess anyone doing a creative writing, not a creative writing, but just like a dramatic writing montage. I think anybody doing that will probably look a little bit crazy, but I feel like L did it, not L. Oh my god, why can't I speak? Light did it with more refined drama, whereas like Mikami looks like he's actually losing his mind, and he literally ends up like bent backwards, double in some sort of contortion at the end, which is just weird. So, as far as the dramatic writing montages go, I was excited to see one. I was not overly enthusiastic about the way that it looked in comparison to Light's dramatic montages, which I felt were as far as you can be refined in a dramatic writing montage. I felt that his were better. So again, I was excited to see that. I gave it points. I took points because of the contortion at the end. And then I just have so much secondhand embarrassment for Light because he is jumping the gun with his like smiling and like giving himself away, even saying that he's won before the seconds have come down so that he actually knows he's won. It's just like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed by you. And I would say it was a character regression, except he has done this before. He has lost his head before with the whole news thing and stuff, so I can't say it's a full regression. And frankly speaking, the Light 3 years later after L does not live up to the pre-L dying Light. And I'm just very disappointed and secondhand embarrassed for him. And because it is a rewatch, I do know how embarrassing it is, truly, that he is losing to a kid that can't even hold a candle to L when he managed to defeat L. Now, I know that they couldn't have let... Okay, I'm jumping ahead, but it is a rewatch, so I assume everybody knows the ending. I cannot believe that Nier is winning because he is not L and he cannot live up to L. And I've said this, I don't like part 2. I've never rewatched part 2 from my original watch through of the series. I don't like it. And even if the points eventually do say I like it better, I maintain I don't like part 2. Even if the trees make the forest a better forest, I still don't like it better than the forest that is part 1. So, I gave it a 3, a high 3, but a 3 all the same because it just was a lot of standing around talking and secondhand embarrassment because I know the ending and I know that it does not turn out well for Kira, duh. So that brings the personal rankings to malice, vigilance, father, selection, justice, 1.28. This episode comes in 6th. Then we have transfer, abduction, scorn, and impatience is in last place for me so far. And that now brings us to our mostly objective ranking list. And in first so far, we have part 1 with 70.77%, and part 2 has 47 out of 110. On the personal ranking side, part 1 is at 60.38%, and part 2 so far is at 46 out of 110. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Death Note Part 2, Episode 36, 1.28. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.